As the sun set behind the mountains, the sky was painted in a myriad of bright colors, some of which seemed to reflect in the sea. Mia could feel the wind in her hair and the salty air on her face as she watched the waves crashing against the shore. It was a bittersweet moment. She had a lot of happy memories of this place, but also some painful ones. She breathed in deeply, trying to clear her head when she heard footsteps approaching her from behind. She turned around to see who it was. As the footsteps grew closer, Mia could distinguish a familiar voice amidst the crashing waves. "Mia, is that you?" He voice called out. It was her childhood friend, Jack. He jogged up to her, looking a bit out of breath. "I saw you from my window and figured it was you," he said with a smile. Mia smiled back, happy to see a friendly face. They hugged, and then Jack began telling her about the new town projects he's been working on. As they walked together along the beach, Mia started to feel her worries melt away. It was moments like these that she knew she had made the right decision in returning to her hometown. Mia and Jack continued to walk along the shore, reminiscing about their childhood days and sharing updates on their present lives. Mia couldn't help but feel grateful for this moment with her childhood friend. Suddenly, the wind picked up, and they both instinctively turned their gaze out to sea. There was something magical about watching the ocean in motion. As they stood watching the waves, Mia noticed a seagull flying towards them. It seemed disoriented, and she immediately sensed that it was injured. Without hesitation, she ran towards the seagull and knelt down to pick it up. To her surprise, Jack followed her. Together, they examined the bird's wing and determined that it was broken. Mia gently cradled the seagull in her hands and searched the shore for a proper shelter for it. Jack immediately suggested his workshop, which was a few minutes away from the beach. They quickly made their way over, constantly checking on the seagull's condition. When they had all settled in the workshop, Mia examined the seagull's wing once more. She was still heartbroken, but determined to save it. Jack rummaged through his toolkits and produced some materials that would serve as splints for the bird's wing. Mia helped him to stabilize it. They made a small bed with a towel near a window, where the bird could rest while they figured out what to do next. As they settled into the workshop, Mia couldn't help but feel grateful for Jack's help. She watched him intently as he carefully cut and shaped the splint for the bird. There was something so comforting about watching Jack work. The way he moved with such precision and care brought a sense of calm to Mia. Once the splint was fashioned, the pair attached it to the bird's wing, and Mia held her breath as they waited for the bird's reaction. After a few minutes, they noticed the bird seemed to be moving its wing slightly, testing the splint and feeling for any discomfort. Mia let out a sigh of relief, grateful that the bird seemed comfortable. Mia and Jack watched with contentment as the bird slowly adjusted to its new splint. They sat together, quietly admiring the fading light and contemplating what they could do next to help the seagull. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they realized they had been in the workshop for quite some time. Jack suggested they close up and continue their efforts tomorrow. Mia nodded, taking the seagull from the window and gently placing it in a small box with some food and water. They ensured the bird was as comfortable as possible and set it in an empty corner of the workshop. As they walked out into the night air, Mia felt a sense of warmth and gratitude towards her childhood friend. As Mia and Jack walked out of the workshop, the cool night air hit them. Mia's stomach grumbled, reminding her that they hadn't eaten dinner yet. Jack noticed her stomach rumble and suggested they grab a bite to eat. They walked towards one of their favorite restaurants, but as they got closer, they noticed that it was more crowded than usual. Jack suggested they try a new place he'd heard of, a small family-owned restaurant a few blocks away. Mia happily agreed, and they walked towards the new restaurant. As they entered, The aromas of various dishes filled the air, making their mouths water. They were greeted by the owner, a warm and friendly woman who showed them to a table in the back. The owner offered them some recommendations, but they were both feeling adventurous and decided to try the daily special. Mia and Jack engaged in a lively conversation while waiting for the food, discussing everything from the seagull they had just helped to the Newtown projects Jack was working on. As the food arrived, they dug in hungrily. Mia savored the flavors of the dish, noticing that it was a fusion of different cultures. She took her time to appreciate each bite, while Jack ate in a hurry, always eager to be working on his next project. As they finished, Jack suggested they take a walk around town. They both agreed, feeling energized by the fresh air and good food. Jack and Mia walked around town, enjoying the cool breeze that passed through the streets. As they walked, they passed by an old record store that had just closed for the day. Jack's eyes lit up with excitement. "Would you like to see something cool?" he asked with a grin. Mia nodded, and Jack led her to the front of the store. He knelt down and reached under the door. After a moment of searching, he pulled out an old vinyl record. "Check this out," he said, holding it up for her to see. Mia's eyes widened as she examined the old record. It was a classic from one of their favorite bands from back in high school. Mia's eyes widened as she examined the old record. It was a classic from one of their favorite bands from back in high school. Jack's eyes sparkled with excitement as he realized he'd rediscovered one of their all-time favorite tracks. Without a second thought, he held out the record to Mia and suggested that they listen to it like they used to do in high school. Mia was hesitant at first, as she was not sure whether listening to the old record would spark up old and complicated memories. However, the excitement in Jack's voice was contagious, and she couldn't resist the urge to join in. They walked to the nearby park, where there were benches and plenty of space to relax. They sat down on a bench, and Jack took out his phone to search for a way to play the record. He quickly found a nearby vintage electronics store and suggested they make a quick stop to buy a record player. Mia was hesitant at first, not wanting to spend the money and time, but Jack insisted, promising that it would be worth the adventure. They walked into the store and were greeted by an older man with a twinkle in his eye. As they searched for a record player, the man told them stories about each vintage piece and how they were the best option for listening to music. After deciding on a player, they returned to the park, excited to listen to their favorite high school album. As they set up the record player, Jack took the vinyl out of its sleeve with utmost care. Mia watched him in amusement, realizing how serious he was about the whole ordeal. As the music started to play, Jack and Mia sat close to each other, letting the music transport them back to a time when things were simpler. They hummed along to the familiar lyrics, sharing smiles and glances of nostalgia. After the album ended, Jack and Mia sat in silence for a moment, savoring the memories the music had brought back. Just as they were about to pack everything up and head back to their respective homes, they heard someone clapping. Jack and Mia looked around to see who was clapping and saw a small group of people approaching them. It was a local band that had been playing at the park just a few yards away. The lead singer of the band introduced himself as Simon and asked Jack and Mia if they'd like to join them for a beer. They agreed, and the group spent the next few hours together, listening to the band play and having a great time. As the night started to draw to a close, Jack turned to Mia and asked, "Do you want to go for a walk on the beach?" Mia smiled and nodded, feeling the excitement of the evening still lingering in the air. As Jack and Mia walked towards the beach, they talked about the events of the evening. They told each other stories, laughed at each other's jokes, and made memories that they would always cherish. They reached the beach, and the moonlit sky above their heads was breathtaking. They walked along the shoreline, feeling the sand beneath their toes. They talked about their dreams, their fears, and everything between. They stopped for a moment, and Jack held Mia's hand firmly. "Listen, Mia," he said. "I know that we have been friends for a long time, but I have been wanting to tell you something." Mia looked at him in silence, unsure of what he was going to say. "I love you, Mia." Jack's words shocked Mia. She hadn't expected this sudden confession. Her love for Jack had been hidden deep in her heart for years, always thinking they were just friends. She tried to process her conflicting emotions, the sudden joy and confusion that engulfed her. Finally, she lifted her eyes to meet Jack's sharp gaze. What would she say? Did she feel the same way? It was a moment filled with tension and anticipation on the tranquil beach. Jack's face fell when he picked up the call. "I'm sorry, Mia," he said, looking at her with a pained expression. "I really have to go." Mia understood. "It's okay," she said, though her heart was heavy with disappointment. "You have to take care of your work. I'll see you soon." Jack gave a sad smile and hugged her tightly. "I'll make it up to you," he promised. As Mia walked back home, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. She was happy that Jack had finally told her his feelings, but at the same time, she was unsure of what the future held for them.